Good evening, everyone. I'll begin the meeting by acknowledging the continuing connection of Aboriginal people to country, culture and community, including traditional custodians of this land, the Wadandi and Kaniang people of the Noongar Nation, paying respects to elders past and present. I declare the meeting open at 5 p.m. This meeting is being live streamed and recorded in accordance with Council Policy EMCP2. Members of the public are reminded that no other audio or visual recording of this meeting by any other means is allowed without the permission of the chairperson. While every endeavour has been made to only record those who are actively participating in the meeting, loud comments and noises can be picked up on the recording. In attendance, we have Councillors Alexis Davey, Councillor Anne Mitchell, Councillor Lisa Glover, Councillor Peter Gubler, Councillor Grant Patrick, Councillor John Bailey, and Councillor Anita Lindeman. Our staff present are CEO Nick O'Connor, Manager Corporate Services Lauren Clifford, Principal Planner in the gallery Celia Mueller, and Acting Director of Finance Morris Batalana, and Administration Officer Corporate Services Samantha Farquhar. I welcome everyone attending in the public gallery and also those who are participating through our live stream. At 2.1, we have apologies from Director of Operations Ross Marshall. And at 2.2, under approved leave of absence, at our Ordinary Council meeting held on the 25th of September 2024, Council resolved the following: to approve Councillor Diana Shan's request for leave of absence for the Ordinary Council meeting held tonight. At 2.3, councillors, are there any further requests for leave of absence? Thank you. At item 3, I would just like to let people know that one of our 3 CEOs who have supported the Shire over the past 12 months, it's time to say farewell to Morris Batalana. Morris, I think you've been working for about 6 months?
3.
3?
It feels like 6.
Sorry. And you've been filling the role most recently as Acting Director of Finance and Corporate. And this is your last task on your to-do list before you finish up tonight. But I just wanted to thank you for all that you've done on behalf of all councillors and wishing you well in your next projects, which are very exciting. And just want to thank you for your expertise and your guidance in those 3 months, not 6 months. But I wish you well. And that brings me to congratulate Lauren Clifford, who will now perform the role of Acting Director for Finance and Corporate. Congratulations from us all. Yep, well done. Moving on to item 4, declarations of interest. Division 6, Subdivision 1 of the Local Government Act 1995 states that care should be taken by all councillors to ensure that a finance and impartiality interest is declared and that they refrain from voting on any matter which is considered to come within the ambit of the Act. Do councillors have any interest to declare for this meeting? Item 5, public question time. Under 5.1, we have no responses to previous questions that have been taken on notice. At 5.2, do we have any questions from the gallery? At item 6.1, petitions, 6.2, presentations, and 6.3, deputations, we have none. At item 6.4, we have delegates' reports this evening. Councillors Davey and Councillor Glover will present their reports tonight, following their attendance at the WA Local Government Association's State Conference that was held in Perth this month. Councillors, who's going first? Councillor Glover? Councillor Glover? Yep.
Sorry. Lauren's just loading mine. It's a PowerPoint presentation, but I'll also need to sit there and look at it on the screen as well, if that's okay. So I'm happy to go second, if you like, Alexis, or Councillor Davey.
Councillor Davey.
Yeah, so in the interest of time, I wrote about 5 pages of notes that I was, other than that, when I started reading it out, I realised it was way too long. So I just wanted to really give some overarching themes that I took away from the conference. So I attended all 3 days. I attended as a proxy for President McCarthy on the first day. The theme of the conference was innovation ecosystem, which sounded quite nice and catchy at the start, but as I sat through the 3 days, there really was an undertone of the need for resilience and adaptation to the huge number of challenges coming our way. So it was quite heavy. There was a lot of information, a lot of people speaking, but the overwhelming amount of work ahead of us was very clear. So there was a focus on financial sustainability from pretty much every councillor, every elected member representative I met. So we as local governments need to get our finances in order. This is important for both us and for our community. The drain on our resources for asset maintenance is significant and results in us looking backwards rather than forwards. The cost shifting of the state and federal governments to local governments was an issue that was raised by the Elder President as being common amongst most people he speaks to. It seems that the state and federal government recognise how good we are in a crisis and that we're able to meet national priorities at a local level, but it doesn't seem like we have been clear in return with our state and federal representatives on our needs, and we need to be consistent, clear and repetitive in lobbying our government for those needs. There was a document that was launched at the conference that was the West at its best, and it's WELGA's 2025 election priorities, and they asked that we make sure that we're being consistent in our communications with our representatives around what we want to try and get clear messaging and act as one larger cohesive voice. We seem to be chasing our tails with regards to finances, and we're going to be easy pickings for amalgamation with our surrounding shires unless we get to a much firmer position with our finances. We really need to see community infrastructure come back. I mean, the increase in roads funding has been great, but we need to be investing in things like deep sewage and opening up more land for infill housing, because business as usual really isn't cutting it when it comes to the housing crisis. There was a focus on food security, people's availability and access to food. We really need to be making sure that people's bare essentials are being met. If we are concerned about things like our natural assets being simply dug up and taken away, then we need to look at things like local manufacturing, establishing industrial areas with water, reliable, consistent power supply and approvals sorted to be able to house more sophisticated manufacturing. We have gotten used to, I think, with, it was an issue that was raised at the conference, with mining, they bring a lot of common user infrastructure with them. This is not the case for manufacturing. If we want to be building like our industrial area and having more manufacturing in this area, we need to make sure that it's set up and ready to go, which is quite relevant to the proposal we've had before us about mining in our general industry area. There was a lot of focus on people as well, so everyone's struggling for the availability and skills with respect to human resources. There was a focus on the need for councillors to have more capacity to contribute their time and more capability, more skills to be able to adapt and consider the needs of our future community and customers. Best practice is becoming outdated very quickly as we face an alarming rate of change, and we need a workforce that's familiar with artificial intelligence and machine learning and can adapt to this, reduce some of the churn that we're facing and actually level up in certain areas, because that efficiency is needed for financial sustainability. There was examples like having retina cameras on the rubbish trucks that then pick up what road maintenance is required, and that's automatically recorded. So simple things like that, they seem a long way off, but people are already picking them up. The value of our community and the work that they do and the active community members and how much value they can take from like a small grant, for example, which is relevant to our agenda today, and the placemaking and those intangible values that come from that sort of activity. The efforts of our community in building our community are invaluable and need to be recognised and supported. And yeah, just I haven't wrapped it up neatly for everyone. I found it very valuable. Everyone seems to be facing similar issues, but yeah, it was quite sobering. I did find it very valuable. I would recommend councillors attend in future, and I'd love to see our community support councillors attending in future, but the amount of work ahead of us should not be understated. It was also a strong focus from the Minister for Local Government that the reforms around having grievances investigated and monitors coming out in and looking at councillors. There was almost like a threatening tone that came through from our Minister for Local Government. So it's just something that I think that we need more education on with the reforms coming through.
Thank you, Councillor Davey. It's a very insightful report. Thanks. I don't know whether to feel worried.
Sorry?
I don't know whether to feel worried with the overwhelming amount of work ahead. Thank you. Councillor Glover, would you like to present your report?
Thank you, President McCarthy. Mine, I guess there was some conclusion to it all, but I just really summarised a lot of the different keynote speakers that I met or listened to over the 2 days that I attended. And so the first one was, where's my notes? There, okay. So the first one was a more of a futurist, and he was Michael McQueen, and he sort of talked about different themes, a lot about embracing technology going forward and also ways of thinking of things. So he looked at the idea of thinking in tides and not waves, waves being a reactive way of thinking and tides meaning about looking forward and actually trying to catch the trends as opposed to being reactive. He talked a lot about the impact of AI as well and embracing AI as a technology, especially, like looking at ChatGPT, things like that too, and how much that will help our workforces and just working through different things. For example, I've used ChatGPT to do my presentation today. I also did it to make my report as well. It's a wonderful technology that we can embrace and use easy. Talked a lot about Gen Z as well, which I found really interesting too, embracing TikTok and looking at different ways of engaging our younger generations. Looked at curiosity over certainty as well, because nothing is certain and things are always changing. Is it a touch screen? No, I can use the mouse. Thank you, Sam. Also looked at, so leaders should embrace the idea of curiosity, and challenge assumptions, as certainty often becomes obsolete in a fast evolving world, and that's the world we're in at the moment with so many changes. Engaging staff in change, they had this really great initiative that he spoke to, and I mean this is someone who's not only working, he works in corporate, and he spoke about this initiative which is called the Dumb Things We Do initiative, which was about encouraging innovation and identify areas for improvement by having that open conversation and looking at that in ways that we can embrace some change in workplaces. Also leading on from that, spoke about the psychology of resistance to change and what is behind the resistance to find change in moving forward as well. And that was around fear and ego, power, all of those sorts of ways about where people are fearful about embracing any kind of change. But embracing change means that we're able to foster adaptability. Learning and unlearning, it often takes about, breaking free and looking at incremental improvements. And he gave this wonderful example about you can do what you like to try and improve a candle, but only when we looked at the evolution and or the revolution and looked at light bulbs, did we actually realise that that was a great thing. So it's not always about trying to improve something, it might be about revolution and looking forward as well. So he just looked about anticipating trends, fostering curiosity and embracing AI. Successful organisations will challenge their assumptions and stay agile in the face of change. The next one was the state of play, which was Colin Barnett, Brendan Grills and Alana McTiernan. And they had a lot of different topics around collaboration across councils. They see that as being a really big way forward as well, which is something that started to inspire my thoughts around amalgamation as well, and using, instead of continuously repeating different resources, how do we pool resources and move forward as a cost-saving measure. They looked at that power generation as well, which is in developing industrial areas too. So a lot about what Councillor Davey said as well. It's about trying to move fast because in many ways projects will go offshore if we can't embrace them and bring them into it, and to try to enable things to happen, which is water and power and industrial sites as well. Faster policy development will be needed to enable that as well. So in conclusion, West Australia's future hinges on collaboration, which is sharing resources, policy agility and purpose-built industrial sites to support energy transitions and industrial growth. Housing initiative. The Minister Hannah Beasley, yeah, she did talk a lot about the reforms and things like that in regard to local government, but I took it more about housing because that was really important to me, so I didn't take any notes about the reforms, because we all kind of know they're coming anyway. And she spoke about what I found quite interesting was the RDAP program as well, which is a Regional Development Assistance Program. So that's housing for employees coming into our shire as well, and hopefully being funding that comes with that. Talked about land release opportunities and funding. Wasn't exactly sure when all that was going to come into it, but she certainly did speak about it, so hopefully that could be a possibility. Lucinda Hartley as well, she was a bit of a futurist as well as a community development person too. So interestingly, her first point was about number of projects that were being completed on time and within budget, which is quite like, oh gosh. And talking about why that is. She talked about being, complexities around needs assessments and optimism bias as well. So people just believing that it's going to happen quicker than what it actually does. There's always hold-ups and everything like that leading to projects being delayed, and I think we all know that anyway, but it was really interesting to see that only 1% of them get finished on time and within budget. North Star approach, which is focusing on the why and looking at focus on goals and things like that. She looked at a pretty cool housing project that happened in Barcelona as well, where they were deciding what kind of community members they wanted to attract into their community as well, so that they could really build a dynamic community. Looking at data-driven solutions, a need for better understanding, trying to avoid jumping at flawed solutions as well. So she looked at it, she gave a really great example of a village in India that was often being flooded, and she wanted to help that village. There was a man there who was taking children into his little tiny shack to teach them English, and he saw that English was going to be a really promising thing to help this community to go forward. So she went to him and said, look, why don't we build you a bigger shack so you can fit more children in and you can teach more of them how to speak English and understand English. And he said, what we really need is paths. Our community turns into mud every time there's rain and it's always getting flooded. We need drainage, we need paths, and I don't care how many kids come into my shack. So it's about understanding actually what the community want and need as opposed to jumping to what we think is the solution. And I thought that was a really great idea that she had there as well. She talked about like the quick wins as well over perfect planning. So start small, test the waters, see if you can make something bigger out of it, if that's what's working as well, rather than jump into something big and then see if it's going to work. Start small, testing it, and just building onto it as we go from there. So she's just, and also data, so then you know that the data's working because people are responding really well to it. So she talks about data-driven approaches, strategic experimentation, lifestyle pace-making to improve project outcomes in urban development. She also spoke about the number of home businesses and things like that coming into the community as well, and understanding, you know, how things really work on the ground. This one was the Collaborative Brain Trust. So it was looking, there were some really cool themes, and certainly talking about food security and the challenges around that. Looking at breaking the complex problems down to maybe a month-to-month type of way of problem solving with it. Albany were there, the CEO and their mayor talking about their project, which was really awesome as well, and how engaging they were with the community to get them on board, and the fact that they had so many different community members on board with it, that it helped them with actually all working together for the same goal. But not only that, it's also helped them with getting more funding, because there's so many different avenues to go towards funding to get the goal forward. Sounds like a really great project, which I didn't write down the name of what it was, so I'm sorry. And there was representatives there from the Town Teams movement as well, which is a grassroots community project encouraging local involvement and helping to shape futures, and we have one of those as well. So the whole part that I took from that was it was about collaboration, community engagement, and incremental systems change can address some complex challenges such as food security. I went into the other one from Alana McTiernan as well, which was talking about IT and data. Spoke a lot about some of the problems being digital literacy or poor literacy around digital technology as well for many of our people in our community, and spoke about a program like Regional Tech Up, which was there to help close the gap so that everyone can embrace technology further. Data planning and benchmarking. Talked a lot about mobile network capacity as well, and the reliance that we have on mobile technology, and the difficulties it brings within our community. For example, Dardanup, they just had their bull and barrel, and it was all reliant on mobile data, and people needed to make transactions. The system wasn't working, it was overloaded. We had the same in our Apple Festival as well, overloaded systems as well because of our reliance so heavily on mobile data. What do you do about it? They don't really have very many answers at the moment, except for trying to find other ways of doing it apart from mobile data. Are you about to ask a question?
Yeah, I was just going to say they didn't suggest cash.
Are you? Oh, please use cash. I was only there at a presentation, okay? I didn't
I just
offer
would've
up
gone,
any,
but-
like, placards or anything like that, but yeah. And then talking about satellites, the lower orbit satellites, I found that quite interesting, like Starlink as well, and then the concerns that they have because they have a short lifespan and they fall out of the sky. Payphone services, fantastic because people can use Wi-Fi there as well as use paid phones, but Telstra are making a lot of money out of that. Looked at initiatives like free internet for students as well. So all in all, she emphasised the need for improved data literacy, reliable networks, faster delivery of telecommunications and infrastructure to strengthen emergency resilience, which was what actually it was about. While technologies like lower orbit satellites present solutions, they must be balanced with environmental and infrastructure concerns, ensuring communities remain connected, especially in emergencies, and it remains really a top priority on it, and it's something that really needs to be worked on. But, you know, we are a massive state and it is a real dilemma that we do face in WA. So my takeaway points were, oops, I just lost it, Sam, sorry. Yeah. My takeaway points were anticipate tides of change, not just waves. Collaboration across councils and industries is really going to be crucial for growth. We really need to look outside the box for those particular things. Strategic housing initiatives will drive community and economic development. Innovation, curiosity and agility are key to future success. And community resilience and connectivity must be prioritised for long-term stability. So that's it.
Thank you, Councillor Glover. Do councillors have any questions of Councillor Davey or Councillor Glover? Thank you.
Only brought 3 in.
We'll move straight into the en-bloc agenda. Have we any changes to what was published?
I don't believe so. So, councillors, obviously this is the opportunity just to move your en bloc motions. I understand there's been sort of some emails going back and forwards, and the original suggested en bloc motions were sent out with the yellow highlighting. I think there might have just been a few errors from my perspective. So apologies for that if I've contributed to some of the confusion, but an opportunity to either include or take off the list now.
Thank you, CEO. Are we happy with that list of en bloc? Give you a little time to look. And if you're happy with that list, would someone like to move the en bloc? Councillor Patrick and Councillor Lindeman. Councillor Patrick, would you like to say anything there? Councillor Lindeman, would anyone like to speak to or from or against? Okay, we'll put it to vote. All those in favour? It's carried. takes us to 9.1.1, development applications, reception centre, camping area and events at the Jalbrook Estate. We have Principal Planner. Cecilia, would you like to come up and speak to that report? And CEO O'Connor, have you got some comments to make just on those possible amendments?
So through you, Shire President, so councillors would be aware, obviously, this is a development application, and there was some discussion at the agenda briefing session last week. In the intervening period before the matter being brought up today, obviously there's been some contact made and some further discussion by staff. So our Principal Planner, Ms Mueller, has provided some alternatives. At the end of the day, it's about having a pragmatic approach to the approval and the condition that balances all sides of the equation. So we've invited Ms Mueller, Principal Planner, to come along tonight and maybe just amplify it or provide some guidance on some alternatives around some of those 2 points of discussion.
Thank you, CEO O'Connor. Ms Muller?
Thank you, Madam President and CEO. Yes, officers received the information from the applicant, Lynn Badley, today, and had a good look at what she was proposing for council to consider. First of all, Lynn requested that condition 9 be waived, and she provided information or her reason for that, and officers have looked at her proposal and would just like to provide some officer advice to council. We've prepared this earlier, but the email we sent has only gone out at 4:18, or we've been working throughout the day on this. And so I'm not sure if all councillors have actually seen this email from officers. Therefore, I will just read it so that everyone has got the same information. So regarding condition 9, while the commitments made by the applicant are well-meaning, so the applicant has provided her own noise management plan and also information about a recent event that was held, a wedding event at Jalbrook. And while the content of that noise management plan is well-meaning, without a formal assessment by a qualified acoustic consultant, there is no certainty for the operator or her neighbours that the noise emissions from the activities are reasonable and comply with the regulations. So those are the concerns of officers. Given the applicant's submission, rather than requiring a formal assessment prior to the commencement of the use, it's recommended that the condition be amended so that the activity can commence. And then this will enable the noise assessment to be based on real life rather than modelling. So while she's commencing her activity with an interim noise management plan, she can also have the consultants come out and take noise measurements and then have that real life rather than modelling being done. So in addition, officers recommend that the attached noise management plan that Lynn has provided be approved in the interim and be managed in accordance with this, and that the activity be managed in accordance with this interim management plan. It's also recommended to split condition 9 to allow the interim management plan to be implemented, and then following on from this, within the next 12 months, a final noise management plan is to be prepared and approved to future-proof this development, because at the moment, Lynn is the operator and we know she's doing a very good job, but concerns are that if this development does change hands and a new owner commence, that maybe he would not have that, or she would not have this commitment as per the interim noise management plan. So it would be good to have a formal acoustic report, and then following on from that, a noise management plan to support it. So if you look at condition 9, you would see that A is now reading, or the recommendation is to have, prior to the commencement of the use, an interim noise management plan is to be submitted and approved by the Shire. Thereafter, noise is to be managed in accordance with the approved interim noise management plan to the satisfaction of the Shire until such time as a final noise management plan is approved. So officers can use the information that Lynn has now provided as her interim noise management plan. It can just go through the normal channels for officers to consider and finally approve that plan, and then that can run with the land until the next step would be that within 12 months of the date of this development approval, a noise impact assessment is then to be undertaken by a qualified acoustic consultant, and then following on from that, following on from the noise impact assessment, the final noise management plan. So it's sort of just splitting the condition to give Lynn the opportunity to proceed and commence operation, and then use that data from the year that she's operating to get someone else to do the actual measuring and to make sure that there will not be a noise, no noise nuisance impacts on the neighbours. Then regarding condition 10, so within the application letter, there's actually a suggestion from the applicant, from Lynn, that she proposes to partially bitumize the driveway once there is uptake of the reception centre, and she sees that the weddings and events are doing well. So in addition to the upgrade of this access way, it's also a recommendation of DFES. Given this is the only entry and exit to the property, officers consider that splitting condition 10 in two parts would allow for a stage implementation to assist the applicant to consider if the uptake of the reception centre has been as per their expectations. So officers recommend that it is important to widen the crossover at the access point and gravel seal the accessway in the battle axe to enable two-way access before proceeding with the use, and are suggesting that within 24 months of the approval, the applicant would need to bitumize or bitumen seal the accessway as a second part to the condition. Do you want me to just read the condition?
Well, just while we are there at that point, Alexis, did you want to raise a question?
Yeah, I was just seeking clarity. The sealing of, so upgrading the road to make it 5.5 metres wide is the DFES requirement, but then sealing it with bitumen was suggested as a way to reduce dust, yes? So sealing it with bitumen is not a DFES requirement. Is that correct?
Thank you.
Thank you. Through you, Madam President. I did go back to the DFES or to the applicant's responses to the DFES advice, and DFES have actually mentioned that because there's only the single driveway entrance, that it says that given the restricted nature of the site and the number of vehicles potentially parked on site, consideration should be given to widening the driveway to a public road standard to ensure visitors can egress the site while emergency services are attending, particularly if a secondary access point cannot be achieved. So I think the emphasis is also from DFES to ensure that this is an access that can be used throughout, and that it is in a good condition. Widening it to a public road would require more space because usually our roads are 20 metres wide. We only have 10 metres for this battle axe. So officers would suggest and recommend that bitumizing it is also a way of getting, increasing the standard.
Thank you.
Through the chair.
Thank you. Go.
Okay. I think, you've got a nice gravel driveway there that looks good. And you're talking about bitumising, which is not cheap. It's dead flat there, so it doesn't suffer from any erosion problems. So I think, and the idea of the bitumen was to keep the dust down. Now, they've already got a 10K limit on that road, very little dust coming off there, and the ambience and the whole feel of the place. So I think it's okay to put these conditions in, but we're increasing the cost by a lot of money for a very little benefit. I can't see how that's going to benefit us at all.
Thank you, Councillor Bailey. But we are sticking to questions at the moment rather than debating.
Okay.
Yep.
Well,
Thank you.
the question is, I can't say how anybody could justify insisting that that be bitumised at such a cost to the proponents.
Thank you, Councillor Bailey. Ms Miller, would you like to finish with that first, and then we'll throw it out to more questions?
Thank you, Madam President. I think I am finished. I have I read the condition now?
No, you didn't get to that. Sorry, my apologies.
So 10A would then be, prior to the commencement of use, the driveway contained in the battle axe is to be widened to allow two-way traffic. The driveway and all other internal driveways are to be constructed to a gravel standard and drained to the satisfaction of the Shire and thereafter maintained. So that would be the first step, and to allow the operator to proceed is just to have it upgraded, like widened and just vegetation trimmed and bringing it up to a wider standard. And then within 24 months of the date of this development approval, the driveway contained in the battle axe and crossover are to be constructed to a bitumen seal standard to the satisfaction of the Shire and thereafter maintained. So again, it does allow the applicant some time to consider whether the uptake of the development has been such that it does involve the bitumising of the road. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms Muller. Now, councillors, given that we haven't heard about this before, I will throw it open to questions but not debate. Councillor Glover first.
No, go.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm just following up on Councillor Davies' question. So DFES have suggested that the battle axe needs to be bitumised, but I just didn't quite understand whether DFES have recommended the other part of the driveway be bitumised. I couldn't catch that in the answer. I'm so sorry, but can I have some clarity around that, please?
Thank you, Councillor Glover. Ms Muller?
DFS didn't specifically say bitumise. It's the interpretation of officers that bringing it up to a road standard where there's not width for us to have it as wide, to upgrade the surface to a bitumen seal.
Thank you, Ms Muller. Councillor Bailey?
Yeah, through the chair, thank you. The acoustic report is an informing document, isn't it? So once
Ms.
the
Muller?
report's done, it's just an informing document.
It is a document that will confirm whether it's likely to meet, whether the noise is likely to meet the noise regulations. So if it's usually done through modelling, but in this instance, the suggestion is to have it done while there is an event on, and that will give us real-life data as to whether these events can comply or whether there might be some reason for an acoustic consultant to make recommendations to the applicant. For instance, the event will be in a marquee, which is fairly open, but an acoustic consultant, through the measuring that they are taking, could potentially provide information stating that the proposal doesn't comply with the noise regulations. But if, for instance, she puts a noise wall somewhere on the property, that could reduce the noise and lessen the nuisance on certain residents. I don't know what they could come up with, but my expectation would be that that document would demonstrate, yes, this application is meeting all the requirements, which would be wonderful, but it will also point out if there are certain concerns that needs to be considered in the long run for it not to become a nuisance to neighbours.
An acoustic
Thank you,
report.
councillor Miller. Sorry.
Oh, sorry, Vivian.
Councillor Bailey?
What's the cost of that acoustic report?
Ms Muller?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. It could be quite. I have heard in the past it could cost up to $4,000, but I'm definitely not sure.
Thank you, Ms Muller. Councillor Lindemann?
Thank you. Through the chair to Ms Muller. Specifically, how many square metres are you talking about bitumising in 24 months' time? And that possible cost, I know Roscoe's not here to give us the bitumen cost, but just a bit of a ballpark on what that might be.
Thank you, councillor Lindemann. Ms Muller, are you able to answer that question?
I would need to take that on notice. It looks like it's going to be 550 square metres because I think it's 5.5 metres wide and it's 100 metres long. So that's what I would expect. Yeah.
Thank you. I have a question. Ms Muller, can you explain to me where the nearest, how far away the nearest neighbour is?
I think in the DFES, in the Department of Water and Environmental Regulation submission, they did talk about 80 or 90 metres, which is quite close. And therefore, Dewar has also raised concerns.
Thank you, Ms Muller. Are there any further questions? Councillor Patrick?
Mine's actually a procedural question. To suggest another alternative or just some slight change of wording to this, where do I get to throw that in?
I'm relying heavily on CEO guidance with this tonight. CEO O'Connor.
So the matter is not actually formally before council at the moment. There hasn't been moved or seconded, but if you wanted to make that suggestion, that's one alternative. There's agreement and there could be feedback on that. Or I guess the more formal process would be to move and second the matter that is that then puts it before council formally, and then you could look at moving an amendment.
Thank you, CEO O'Connor.
Yeah.
Councillor Bailey?
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair, I'm just wondering, because this has just been lumped on us now, whether we could go into suspend standing orders, which we've done now, and just kick this around for a few minutes to work out where we want to go. Because your things could be heard without the formal motion being put to, and there might be other stuff that comes out, brings it up a little bit better.
Councillors happy to go to, or would someone like to move that we suspend standing orders? Councillor Davey, Councillor Patrick, all in favour? Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I think we'll still take turns in questions.
Yeah, sure.
Councillor Davey.
I also wanted to make a similar point. So I had proposed an amendment to condition 10, which I sent via email, which councillors may not have a chance to read. I sent it at 3:20 this afternoon. I don't have any proposed changes to the original condition 9, only the original condition 10 and the amended condition 10.
Thank you, Councillor Davey. Councillor Patrick.
Thank you. So the reason I asked my question is totally appreciate what's been said, and I know we're not debating it at the moment. The cost is significant. However, I have reached out to one of the neighbours who has very grateful for the amount of consultation that the applicant has put to the neighbours. And she has said, whilst not enthused about the idea of the amplified music, accepts that and is quite happy to go ahead with that. But as part of her sort of request was that the property be bitumised within the future if the business is successful. I do understand the cost implications, and my thoughts or suggestions would be around, rather than stipulating it be bitumised, that some kind of dust mitigation strategy be put in place, because the neighbour has said it does get dusty. It does get very dusty going down that driveway across to their property. So I am concerned about that given how close it actually is. There are a lot of dust mitigation strategies that are environmentally friendly, sprays or whatever else it might be that are environmentally friendly that can be used to basically bond the driveway rather than seal it. So my proposal would be to change the wording to have some kind of, just dust mitigation strategies in place rather than stipulating bitumising it, because those costs are pretty significant. So that's where my thoughts were going.
Thank you, Councillor Patrick. CEO O'Connor?
Yeah, probably just on that point, and clarify if I'm wrong here, Principal Planner, but my understanding of there's two limbs to the requirement or the condition to seal it. One is definitely a dust suppression, but is the other one around ensuring safe access and egress during perhaps, let's say, heavy traffic periods and when it gets wet and boggy? My understanding there is two limbs or triggers for wanting that sealing.
Ms Muller?
Yes, that is correct.
So am I right in understanding then it's not just dust suppression?
That's
right. Okay. Yes. Okay. Councillor Davey?
I just wanted to draw people's attention to the fact that there are already dust and drainage conditions aside from the two that we're looking at.
Thank you. Councillor Patrick?
Yeah, it's just acknowledging, what the CEO has said. I mean, the gravel road itself, I run past it every couple of days at least. I do know the road and the driveway. The stipulation is that it's, maintained at a, whatever the terminology is there, of a, suitable gravel level, which is suitable still during wet weather. We have a lot of gravel roads in the Shire that don't get boggy. It's really around that, particularly from my point, is from the neighbour's perspective around the dust suppression. The road itself is an all-weather road, even though it's gravel, is my understanding of the driveway. So I just wanted to flag that point.
Thank you, Councillor Patrick. Councillor Goobler?
Just the previous owner had concerts there, and they used to transport people in by bus into that location, so it probably eliminated having a lot of cars coming into the venue, so there's possible ways around that. So.
Thank you, Councillor Goobler. Councillor Mitchell?
I'm just wondering, I'm reading the development, point 2, development should not exceed 12 weddings, 6 incidental campings, etc. If it wasn't successful and they wanted to increase beyond that, I'm assuming they'd have to come back to council if they wanted to have 52 weddings a year.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yes.
Yep.
And that then changes the amount of road use, I would have thought, wouldn't it?
That's correct. Any other questions? Councillor Glover?
Yeah, just following on from that too, there were limitations on how many people will be attending the venue per event as well. There was a cap on that as well, is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, so that also would impact on the amount of road usage that's happening there too.
Councillor Bailey?
Just going on that question again, I agree with Councillor Patrick there that there are other mitigations. I'd like to see that word bitumising because that's a big cost. It can be gravel dust because there's a lot of things we can buy through industry that'll be a lot cheaper and do the job just as well and will look better. The trouble with bitumen is you've got to constantly maintain it because we know that we've got roads. And the other one I'd like to touch base on is the acoustic report. Now, these people, proponents, have been operating this business for 3.5 years. And while the acoustic report will be an informing document, it's not an enforcing document. And these people are enforcing total control on the sound.
I'll just check that. The noise management plan is an enforcing document or an informing? I think it's an informing document if I'm right. But
Well, it can't be an enforcing document because nobody there is to enforce it.
Well, sorry, Ms Milner?
The noise impact assessment is the document that will identify what is needed to be done, and then the noise management plan is the one that will enforce how that outcome will be achieved.
Thank you, Ms Milner.
May I just...
Yes?
I would just like to inform you of the cost of that bitumen seal. Roscoe kindly enough provided provided the information that that bitumen seal could be $16,500. Thank you, Roscoe.
Roscoe's everywhere. Councillor Bailey.
Yeah, thank you, Evan. Through the chair again. The reality with acoustics there, these people have got a brilliant system where they turn it off early at night. The type of music being played is always very low. They've been doing this over 3.5 years and not one complaint. So I don't know why we would need to put them to the cost of an acoustic report when clearly they're acting well and truly within the noise barriers because nobody has complained.
Thank you, Councillor Bailey. May I remind everyone that we are asking questions and not debating. Okay. True. I'll take that back. Thank you. Councillor Patrick.
Can I just comment on that then? So I think the response around that was everyone's quite satisfied that the current applicants are doing the right thing, but it's protecting in future. So if Lynn does sell up and someone else buys it, they might not do the right thing. So it's kind of, protecting, future-proofing it more so than saying right here and now. I don't know.
Sorry, CEO O'Connor.
I don't believe so. It's about the use and the current use. Who actually owns the property? It's not relevant.
My point is there has been no breaches. There have been no complaints. So the way they're running the show is very, very good. Now, if it changes hands and the neighbours who are very close and good people, if they say, look, we've got a problem, then there'll be an assessment done. But I fail to see where we've got, this is a first-class operation. This is the type of tourism we want. And, it's $4,000 here and 18 grand there and 10 grand here. Are we really serious on good quality tourism? Or are we just trying to make it too difficult for people to do? Because that's where we're at, where people just go, well, I just can't afford to keep throwing money at it. And I think that if there are no breaches and nobody's complaining, then they have got it totally under control without spending another 4 that could be another 6 or 8. And where does that stop?
Thank you, Councillor Bailey. Councillor Mitchell, is your hand up? Councillor Lindeman?
I can see the point of view there, but I think the term was used at the agenda briefing of consistency for all applicants, and also neighbours move and you get people that are more sensitive. So I think it's okay to put that in as a safeguard for someone who wants to buy the business. You want a viable business. We've done these things, meets the requirements. They can sell it and cash out.
Thank you, Councillor Lindeman. Councillor Davey?
Is now an appropriate time for me to read out what I was going to propose for condition 10, given we've got suspended
We've
standing
got
orders?
suspended orders,
Yep.
yes.
So for condition 10, I was proposing to make it simpler. So prior to the commencement of use, the driveway and entrance contained in the Battle Axe is to be widened to allow two-way traffic, thus satisfying DFES. That bit wasn't in there. And then the driveways, so internal and the main driveway, so the driveways and crossover are to be constructed to a gravel standard to the satisfaction of the Shire and thereafter maintained. So as I mentioned before, dust and drainage management are already addressed in other conditions, and you've got a catch-all of to the satisfaction of the Shire in there. It's not enforcing a bitumen seal. I still don't see a justification for a bitumen seal. We accept a gravel standard two-way traffic as access and egress all over the Shire, as was pointed out by Councillor Patrick. So I wanted to keep that one really simple.
Thank you, Councillor Davey. Councillor Mitchell.
I do have a question. When it comes to the satisfaction of the Shire, the road, is that what we would aspire to have our gravel roads to be? Or is it what our gravel road is often with potholes that you can disappear in? So, what is to the satisfaction of the Shire? What standard is that? Just a gravel road, an average gravel road as per a Shire gravel road, I'm assuming?
Thank you, Councillor Mitchell. Sorry, Ms Miller, would you like to add some clarity to a couple of points that have been raised?
Yes. Regarding the, if the condition says to the satisfaction of the Shire, that condition usually is cleared by the relevant person, officer, that deals with those kind of matters at the Shire. So if it is regarding roads, it's likely to be the manager of works and services or the director. So it's a collaboration of those officers in that specific department.
It's okay, it was a tongue-in-cheek because
Yes,
you all
yes,
know I've been a little bit
yes.
vocal about potholes of late.
Yes.
Thank you.
But just to add to that, in this instance, we have provided some advice regarding what the expectation would be for the road. So it's under advice note G, where it says, with regard to condition 10, the seal width needs to be a minimum of 5.5 with appropriate gravel shoulders and tapers at its intersection with Jays Road. A traffic management plan will be required to be submitted, approved and implemented through these works when working within the Jays Road Reserve. Stormwater runoff from the sealed surface will need to be managed within the property, and then detailed plans of how this is to be achieved are to be submitted for approval prior to construction commencing. So there's still a little bit of work to be done, and then those plans are lodged with the Shire, and we normally give it through to the Works and Services Department, and they will then confirm that they are happy that it is constructed at that standard. So this advice note just refers to seal. It doesn't specify bitumen or gravel or anything. It just refers to what that expectation is. And then also just something that was mentioned is that these conditions that council at the end of the day consider and approve the application under is always appealable by the applicant. So the applicant will have the right, if she's not happy with any of the decisions made, to go to SAT and appeal the decision. And we also provide that advice in the document. I think it's under J as an advice note.
Thank you, Ms Miller.
Thank you.
Councillor Glover.
In the agenda briefing, Ms Muller, I did speak about consistency of applications, etc. My understanding, if you can confirm it, was that obviously this was a consistent approach to all applications that were similar. However, I think you mentioned a point about when there was any concerns raised by neighbours, then additional conditions may be put on board with that. And so am I right in making the assumption that the sealing of the gravel road was more as a result of concerns raised by neighbours, and also I suppose the music or the noise was more as a result made by neighbours as opposed to being a consistent approach to the applications that were similar like this? Am I correct in that interpretation?
Ms Muller.
Thank you. Yes, but if that is correct, you look at the concerns raised by the neighbours, and then we address them through these conditions. The road, it was dust, it was safety concerns raised by the Shire's Works and Services. It was also considering the comment received from DFES. So there's a couple of things that we considered. Regarding the noise, it was Doer that made comment about that the application can benefit from that, and it was also to address the concern from the neighbour. I also just want to make the point that at this stage, we all know that the development is travelling very well. There has been events held with no complaints, but the problem is just when there is a complaint and how we deal with it then. And that has been very difficult for officers in the past to, not here at this Shire, but my experience at another local authority where a similar development was creating noise issues. And it's really difficult for officers then to deal with that noise complaint because officers have to go out over weekends, take noise measurements, and you have to consider that whole compliance process. It actually involved getting DOER involved. It could even be elevated to ministerial requests about what is being done about this issue, and that is what we want to avoid.
Thank you, Ms Muller. Are there any other questions or comments? Councillor Bailey?
Your definition of sealed, you're saying that's not bitumised.
Ms Muller?
I was just referring to the advice note that talks about how wide the road needs to be, and with the shoulders and tapering at the intersection with Jay's Road. So it was just an advice as to what is expected of the applicant. She needs to put in a detailed plan showing how she will construct that road. That was what I was referring to.
But look, I understand what you're saying, but the
Councillor
word
Bailey?
sealed, we have gravel roads and we have sealed roads. I've always understood a sealed road to be bitumised. So,
Thank you, Councillor
and
Bailey.
we can debate that now, but when we're not in this room and the word, if it goes in there and it says sealed, that's exactly what somebody's going to anticipate, that this has got to be sealed. I wouldn't support sealing that road.
Thank you, Councillor Bailey.
I understand what Councillor Bailey is saying, and we can, in the advice note, remove the word seal if that's what needs to be done.
Thank you.
What would you replace it with?
Just that the width needs to be a minimum, so we can just actually, this is just an advice note, so the condition is what council needs to focus on, because that will specify whether it's going to be bitumen sealed or just a gravel road.
Thank you. CEO Connor, are we ready to move into invoking standing orders again?
Reinstate standing orders, yeah. Do you need to move in a
Not
second?
quite.
Oops, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Moving and seconding. So Councillor Davey and Councillor Mitchell. Before we go into standing orders? We're able to do that, aren't we? CEO O'Connor?
Yeah, that's okay. But my understanding was that the proposed changes that were put up there from the officers was what we were going to move in second, and then there was going to be amendments. But it's up to councillors. If you're going to depart from what's there, then you can do that outside of your
Yes, and through the chair, the problem with that is then we move those as it is, and then we've got to try and amend it.
That's right,
I'd rather get the council to a stage where we have a reasonable consideration where something like what Councillor Davies put up for clause 10, which gets rid of the sealed business, is something close to where we're going to be, so we don't have to debate this all night.
I think by moving them, Councillor Bailey, we can have them up there, and there may be people who are in favour of a sealing.
Yeah,
of the
look, I
road
understand
and-
what you're saying, and you're correct. But what if I move
Councillor
the motion
Bailey.
through the chair? What if I move the motion that I move a motion we pass those recommendations subject to modifications and amendments on 9 and 10, and then we just keep on going around in circles.
I think we have to state them, don't we?
Yeah, can I
that's
suggest, and again, I'm happy to be corrected from those that have more experience than I sitting in the room, whilst they're still with us. But before you today is actually the recommendation from staff. And I think procedurally, I think I would feel a lot more comfortable if indeed that was the motion that was put forward, moved and seconded, and then it was debated. And then if there's any amendments based on the discussion that was just held outside of standing orders.
That's my
That would be my
preference.
recommendation.
That's my preference too. With that in mind, are we moving the motions with the CEO O'Connor? Are we moving it with the adjustments that Muller?
Yes, apologies. So I guess the dynamic is that there was an original report with some conditions. Since the agenda briefing session, there's been some other information come to light, some representations made. Officers have taken that away and they've considered it, and they believe that on the basis of that, they want to bring it back with those conditions that have
Those
been
two
amended.
changes that
Those
were
two
made.
changes as has been discussed by,
And
or
as
read
have
by
been
Mrs
read out.
Muller,
Oh,
and has
yeah.
been read out. Yep.
So when we resume standing orders, we'll put that forward and any amendments can go from there. Councillor Davey?
What if I was to move with an amendment?
Pardon? I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
so could I
Councillor
move-
Davey, what was that you said?
Could I move with an amendment off the bat to try and streamline the process?
Once we raise the recommendation, you can move recommendation. I'm sorry, move an amendment. Councillor, sorry, you'd like to resume? Councillor Lindemann would like to move that we return to standing orders, seconded by Councillor Mitchell. All in favour? Thank you. Now, would councillors like to move item 9.1.1, development application, reception centre, camping area and events at Jalbrook Estate? Councillor Davey would like to move and Councillor Patrick second. And Councillor Davey, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, I'd like to move with the amendment to change item condition 10 to reflect the wording I've provided previously.
Sorry, you were moving it to say what, sorry?
The wording I've provided previously for condition 10.
For 10, okay. Right. Councillor Davey, would you like to speak to... Sorry, seconder for the amendment, Councillor Bailey. Councillor Davey?
So to speak generally about the application, 9.1.1 for Jalbrook Estate, I still hold some reservations regarding the bushfire management plan amendments not going back to DFES and getting sign-off from the author of the bushfire management plan on those amendments, just as a general practice. I think the driveway being unsealed at low speed is fine. The width providing for dual accessway access of vehicles is fantastic. With the noise, the proposed amendment, I'm not entirely comfortable with the events being able to proceed and then having the monitoring to verify they're within the requirements. I'd like to see for future events or future applications of this nature that you do the modelling and you back it up with the measurement rather than skipping the modelling part. But I can understand that the applicant is on good standing with that, and it seems to be acceptable to the rest of the councillors. So this amendment that I'm proposing, I've already described. I think that there are other conditions that cover dust and drainage adequately, and therefore they don't need to be recaptured in this condition.
Councillor Bailey?
Yeah, through the chair, councillors, I believe everything that Councillor Davis just said, and unfortunately, dust now is everywhere compared to what it used to be because we're getting drier seasons, and I think the amount of dust that will come off that road in particular will be minimal, and then I believe it's going to be in their interest if that road becomes a problem to look at alternative types of systems to calm it down without spending 20 grand, because if they're talking 18, it could be $25,000 on sealing, and we're not doing that to our own roads in a lot of cases.
Thank you, Councillor Bailey. Would anyone else like to speak against the motion? Councillor Patrick?
Yeah, thank you. Look, it's a tough one because I'm very supportive of removing the bitumen seal and all the other things that have been said. I am just very conscious of, we've Councillor Bailey sort of said, oh, to be very little dust, but based on the feedback from a direct neighbour, it's already significantly dusty as soon as a breeze comes up, let alone with traffic. And so just being conscious of the neighbours and the very close proximity of the neighbours, I would still like to see a very small amendment to that, just stipulating that dust management for the driveway specifically. All that's in here at the moment is any dust associated with the use is managed appropriately in accordance with the Shire of Donnybrook Balingham. I don't think that's strong enough. I personally think specifically for the driveway, there should be some requirement for a dust mitigation or dust management. Like, as I say, all for it not being bitumised. I think it is part of the aesthetics of it, that gravel driveway and the entranceway and so on. But the neighbours are particularly close in this instance. You know, 80 to 90 metres is very close for a neighbour with it's a relatively long, dusty driveway. There are paddocks across the way and down. You know, wind does come through there. So I'm speaking against the amendment purely just on the small aspect of I do believe there should be a specific reference to dust management of the driveway itself.
Thank you, Councillor Patrick. Sorry, Councillor Patrick. Would anyone like to speak for the amendment? Councillor Glover?
I'd like to speak for this amendment. I do understand that there are, you know, there is dust, there's all those sorts of things too, but I do think that it is something that the owners of the property may work towards, but placing too many conditions would make us appear that we are not open for business and assisting our, you know, facilities like this, which is a fantastic facility for events. It's great to attract tourists. We don't want to put too many restrictions on them that might make it not achievable for them to be open for business.
Thank you, Councillor Glover. Would anyone else like to speak against the motion? For? Councillor Lindemann?
I'd like to highlight Councillor Goobler's comment that it's there's an opportunity for buses which will reduce traffic flow, and I think that's quite a good option.
Thank you, Councillor Lindemann. Anyone else like to speak to the motion before we throw it back to right of reply? Councillor Bailey? I'm sorry, do you go first or second? Councillor Davey?
So the road will be wider and therefore the area with potential for dust generation will be greater. So there is actually not only increased traffic but a greater area to create dust. There are so many dust suppressant products out there. I've written numerous dust management plans and submitted them to councils for approval in the past. I think there are lots of solutions that the proponent can look at to avoid the generation of nuisance dust that are actually captured by that policy. So if a community member, if a neighbour is coming to the Shire or coming to the proponent themselves and saying that they are creating nuisance dust, then that should trigger some sort of action. So there's products like Glue-On and MagSafe and things like that that can effectively manage dust without having a permanent seal. And I would trust that proponent would undertake actions to prevent nuisance dust and ongoing complaints.
Thank you, Councillor Davey. Have we got...
Just double
if
check.
we can avoid doing that when people are debating, that would be helpful. CEO O'Connor.
Thank you very much. Through you, Chair, I understand that as a consequence of Councillor Davies' amendments, we'll need to amend the advice note at G, just to make sure that there's consistency in the wording. So it looks at changing advice note to take the word seal out, and the other word sealed, so we just put in a generic word such as roads, but we just need consistency in the advice note as well. So just as clarity.
Do they need to be up? Do we need to do that now and put that up on the screen? No. We're all happy with that.
Yep.
Yep, noted and accepted.
Thank you. We're ready to put that to vote. All of those in favour? for the amendment? For the amendment. Thank you. It's carried. And that now becomes the substantive motion. And the substantive motion was raised by Councillor Davey and seconded by Councillor Patrick. Councillor Davey? Yeah. Councillor Davey, would you like to speak to the substantive motion?
I've already given my general feedback on the proposal, so no, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Patrick?
Look, in general, as I said, I am really supportive of the amendment. I've just raised my concern on behalf of, feedback I received from the community, but, I'm satisfied. Just looking at the policy that does talk about dust, it's pretty weak, but, it is what it is, so that's all good, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Patrick. Would anyone else like to speak against the substantive motion? Speak for? Councillor Lindemann?
I'd just like to show appreciation to the executive team for spending some time and taking a consultative approach to this so that the applicant can actually get something moving and get it through. So excellent to have an opportunity for another new and local business. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lindemann. Councillor Bailey?
Through the chair, I'd like, getting off number 10, I'd like to have a look at number 9 and just see how, if you can go through that and tell me how that's written up now, what that motion is on 9, please.
We can put that up on the screen. While we're doing that, would anyone else like to speak to the motion? Oh, sorry, for the motion? Against the motion? We'll just put that up on the screen. That's it. If councillors are happy with that on the screen, I'll put it back to right of reply unless there's anyone else that wants to speak to the motion.
Does go over the page, President, so maybe just in the interest of timing.
All done? Councillor Lindemann?
Yeah, thank you. It's just a question. Oh, there's a question. I
Okay,
have spoken
question's good.
for-
Question's good.
Yeah, okay. It was more in regards to the assessment. Just to clarify, events do finish at 12 p.m, don't they? Is that correct?
Councillor Muller? Sorry, Miss Muller.
Specifically the weddings, I think, might have been. Was that it?
I think it
Oh,
was 11.
an 11. Okay, fine. Even better.
Sunday, yeah.
Miss Muller?
Thank you. Regarding the events, if you look at condition 2, the ticketed events, so 6 of them, closing at 9 p.m. So that's regarding them. All others are as per this table.
Thank you, Miss Muller. Would anyone else like to speak to this motion? Councillor Bailey, you've
Look,
already
I
spoken.
must apologise, on number 9, I can't read that with glasses or without glasses, so can somebody tell me what how it looks and how it stands on point number 9, the acoustic report, please?
Yes, we can read that out, Councillor Bailey.
Thank you.
9A, prior to the commencement of use, an interim noise management plan is to be submitted and approved by the Shire. Thereafter, noise is to be managed in accordance with the approved interim noise management plan to the satisfaction of the Shire until such time as a final noise management plan is approved. And Part B, within 12 months of the date of this development approval, a noise impact assessment is to be undertaken by a suitably qualified acoustic consultant whose qualifications and experience qualify them for membership of the Acoustical Society. Would you like me to read out what the noise impact assessment is to determine?
No, thank you very much, though. I appreciate that. So, if I can just pose a couple of questions to that. So we're looking at an interim plan and then a final plan, and then 12 months later we do another plan. Is that correct?
No, it's just the... sorry, Ms Muller.
Thank you, Madam President. No, the interim noise management plan is being referred to because of the noise management plan that the applicant provided yesterday. So that's the interim noise management plan. It hasn't finally been approved, but that is what we will consider for this condition 9A. Then the next step would be that within 12 months of this development application, that's when we would want to see the noise impact assessment that's done by a qualified acoustic person. And following on from that acoustic impact assessment or the noise impact assessment, there would be another final noise management plan. So if there's something that the acoustic consultant identify that needs to be done for this development to comply in the long run with the noise regulations, that will then sit in the final noise management plan. So there's only 2 management plans that we're talking about, but the one will have input from a qualified consultant.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Muller. Okay, just recapping where we are, we're debating the amended, or what's become the substantive motion, which is moved by Councillor Davies, seconded by Councillor Patrick. Councillor Lindeman and Councillor Bailey have commented. Would anyone else like to comment on or debate on the item? Councillors, we'll put that to vote. Those who are in favour of right of replay, I beg your pardon, Councillor Davies.
I will keep it brief. I agree the consultative approach has been really well managed, and we all want to avoid the time and resources of people ending up in the SAT. I think the lack of complaints is a good indication that noise management to date has been effective, and the items that are specified in the interim noise management plan should be effective enough until we have confirmation that the neighbours are not being unreasonably impacted by the increased number of events.
Thank you, Councillor Davey. All in favour of the motion? That's carried. Well done, councillors, and thank you, Ms Muller. And thank you for all the work that went into that this afternoon. Thank you very much. Thank you, councillors. Nine 9.2.1's on block. 9.2.2. No, 9.2.2, I think.
2.2 was
Okay. Moving on to 9.2.3. Budget variation request for the ICT Disaster Recovery Plan and Testing. Acting Director of Finance and Corporate, would you like to speak to this report?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have no more to add.
Thank you. Okay, would councillors like to move the item? Councillor Lindeman, would someone like to second? Councillor Gubler? Councillor Lindeman, would you like to speak to the matter? Councillor Gubler? Would anyone else like to speak to the item? We'll put that to vote. Those in favour? Thank you. Carried. Item 9.2.4, review of local laws under section 3.16. Councillors, we right? Got a question? I was too, Councillor Mitchell, but we're now on item 9.2.6. My apologies. Policy review, EXE/CP-4, welcome and acknowledgement of country. Acting Director or Manager Corporate Services, would you like to speak to this report?
Thanks, through the chair, Madam President. So the review was done, and further on from the agenda briefing, I consulted with the Southwest Land and Sea Council in regards to the protocols and what is to be expected and what is the best way forward in the wording. From the consultation that I got from them, and was that the changes made, and to keep it a bit more high level, we've just kept it at the Noongar Nation, because Donnybrook, the Shire itself, not just the building that we're in, obviously crosses over 2 areas, and if we're going to mention dialects, then we would need to mention all of them, and that was the feedback that I got from them. I have not been able to get any information from the corporations that specifically are in our area, which is the Ngarlakala Budja region. So it's just recommended that we keep it a bit more high level with the Noongar, Noongar Nation, instead of going down to the dialects, but happy to be, if anyone's got any further information or sound advice.
Thank you, Manager Corporate Services. I have a question before we proceed. I think wherever I've been, the welcome to country mentions the dialect on the land that they were on. Is that different to what you're saying there?
Through the chair, the welcome to country is very different to the acknowledging. And
sorry, did I say welcome? I meant acknowledgement.
Yes, yeah. The document as it stands was sent to the Southwest Land and Sea Council, and the changes that have been made are as per their recommendations. So it doesn't specifically say that we need to use certain wording for a welcome to country. We wouldn't generally do a welcome to country ourselves. We would get someone in to do that. But the acknowledgement for country has been left at that high level of the Noongar Nation, and we would probably have a look at maybe getting a procedure around the wording within certain documents. But the advice was to keep it a bit high level at the Noongar Nation so that we're not disrespecting any of the dialects within, the language dialects within the region.
Thank you, Manager Corporate Services. Okay. Would councillors like to move the motion? Councillor Patrick, would someone like to second the motion? Councillor Gubler. Councillor Patrick, would you like to speak to the motion?
Look, only to say that, I don't have probably a good enough knowledge on this in this space, so I'm relying on the recommendation and based on the consultation that's been done. With my trust in the administration, that's why I will move the motion and support it. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Patrick. Councillor Gubler?
Just go along with what's been said, so thank you.
Would anyone like to speak against the motion? Councillor Davey.
So the point of the policy is to be inclusive, and the Shire of Donnybrook bailing up actually covers 2 regional corporations, the policy mentions 1, and I think we only cover 3 language groups, which I don't see as a significant undertaking to update the document.
Thank you, Councillor Davey. Can I just ask a question there? Did you say that you don't see it would be... Can you just clarify what your statement was?
To
there?
repeat what I was saying, the document should be inclusive of the people whose country we're on, and at the moment it references 1 regional corporation, not both, and it doesn't reference the language groups, of which I believe there are only 3. So this is not a significant amendment to the document. It could have been resolved in the last week, and that's why I don't support the policy as it stands.
Thank you, Councillor Davey. Would anyone else like to speak to, or sorry, for the motion, for the recommendation? Against? Well, I will have a little word to say that I'm nervous about not including the dialects. And based on information I've received, it's incorrect not to include the dialects. But then I'm confused because it's a recommendation of the Aboriginal Corporation, so I'm feeling a bit at sea. But thank you. We can put that to, sorry? Manager Corporate Services?
We can review it once we've heard back from both corporations. It's just the timing, we haven't had a response from the 2 corporations, so the ones that Councillor Davey is referring to. So on both their websites, the Ngarlin Bulja is the only one that references the Donnybrook and Balingup as being in their region, but this is something that we can also amend later when we've got more facts.
Okay. So we can amend it. Okay. Right. We can put that to vote then if there's no... Oh, Councillor Lindeman?
This might sound a dumb question. So if we don't know, why are we changing it and should we defer it?
Thanks, Councillor Lindeman. Manager Corporate Services?
was gonna say-
CEO O'Connor?
Sorry, through you, Chair. Yeah, so that's certainly an option open to Council this evening. The matter has been put before Council, it's been moved and seconded, so I guess, from procedurally you need to deal with the item. So if that was Council's mind to look at deferring it, then there just need to be an amendment considered.
Councillor Lindeman, do you have an amendment?
I am happy to defer it or move a motion to defer this till we have the knowledge. I would like to do it correctly.
Okay, you'd like to move that? And who'd like to second that? Councillor Bailey? Would anyone... Oh, Councillor Lindeman, do you want to speak to that? Councillor Bailey?
No, if it's not inclusive, then let's get it right before we do it.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak to the amendment? Well, we'll put the amendment to vote. Those in favour? Thank you. That's carried. The amendment is carried. Oh, sorry. Oh. So 721. That's carried. So the amendment becomes a substantive motion. Would anyone like to... Councillor Patrick and Councillor... No, sorry. That becomes the main motion. So would someone like to move the motion, move the amended motion as the substantive motion? Councillor Davey. And seconded? Councillor Lindeman. Councillor Davey?
I thought if the amendment was accepted, we didn't...
Gladly, Morris. Have we done something wrong?
Yeah, sorry. What you've moved is a procedural motion that the item be deferred. If that procedural motion is passed, the matter lapses. Okay.
Thank you. Then the motion is lapsed. Okay.
So the matter's been deferred.
Okay. Okay, then. Moving on to item 9.3.1. Proposed budget variation for Bunbury Geograph Tourist Partnership Membership Subscription. CEO O'Connor, would you like to speak to this report?
Yes, look, thank you very much, Shadow President, through you. So, Councillor, before you today is a request. Obviously, part of the agenda briefing, we discussed the fact that as part of the agreement with the Bunbury Geograph Tourist Partnership, there was a 12-month notification period in which to withdraw. It's good, obviously, financial rigour that if we're looking at getting a budget amendment to allocate a potential funding source for councils to consider. I think I sent out this afternoon, based on, I guess, some informal feedback that I received from elected members, that if councillors weren't comfortable with the source of funding coming out of community grants, that I have been advised by council's finance staff that the provisional actual carried forward amount of the surplus for the 23-24 year is actually going to come in higher than what was first anticipated. It's obviously still subject to formal audit, but the provisional or the indicative figure looks like it's going to be over and above budget. So we could certainly deal with that as part of a budget amendment if indeed councillors didn't want to take it from the community grants.
Thank you, CEO O'Connor.
Could we please suspend standing orders
To discuss? Thank you. Who would like to move that? Councillor Davey and Councillor Bailey. All in favour? Carried. Councillor Patrick.
Is there anything within the MOU that talks about the implications if we don't pay? I mean, obviously we've signed an MOU that says we'll give 12 months notice before we're going to bug out. But and obviously there's reputational risk, and I understand that. But there's probably reputational risk of pulling out of the agreement anyway. But is there anything in there that talk about the implications if we don't pay the 12 months membership?
I'd have to take that one
CEO
on notice
O'Connor?
through you, yeah. But my assumption would be, and I don't have the document in front of me, that it would be the reputational risk and a loss of face, and potentially, the sullying of good working relationships with those participating shires.
Thank you, CEO O'Connor. Councillor Davey.
Just in the interest of transparency, I've been involved in groups that have applied for some of those community grants in the past, so before I was elected, and I'll probably be involved in groups who apply for them in the future. I think I have an interest, I don't think I have a conflict there. And I have previously featured my short stay accommodation with Bunbury Geograph. I don't have it featured with them now. So there was a note in the officer's report around us expressing dissatisfaction with the service, which I don't think is correct. I didn't express any dissatisfaction, anecdotal or otherwise, with the service. What I asked for was, I requested that data similar to that provided by the Warren Blackwood Alliance of Council Tourism Project be provided to us, so we could actually objectively assess the value that we're getting from this partnership. We haven't had data to support whether or not we're getting, web page hits on our content, whether it's directing people to our visitor centre. We need some information to determine the value of this partnership and what value they're proposing to bring us in the future, in the next year. I don't think the community and the grants program should be penalised by the fact that we overlooked that we had a 12-month commitment when we made the decisions we did for the budget. Considerable community efforts put into the projects that are funded by that community grant scheme. We get excellent return on investment, anecdotal, on very small outlay for that. So where we've got active and invested community advocates working on our behalf to build community, I don't think they should be disadvantaged by our oversight.
Thank you, Councillor Davey. Councillor Bailey.
Yeah, I agree 100% because, and two councillors came back from the Well of Confidence basically saying that the most important thing that we've got is our people. And then you get young people coming along like this and we're prepared not to give them any money, maybe, to send it off to Bunbury. And I don't know what things are measurable, and I guarantee that $20,000 is more tied up in wages than it is in advertising. And I won't be supporting it to send any money to them at all, be honest with you.
Councillor Lindemann?
I can't remember how many years we part of Bungeo, but I was definitely dissatisfied. I think they were the correct words. I don't think we got any bang for our buck, and that was the reason that we decided. You ask about informational statistics. Well, there's none when you talk about, I love community too, but you have to say, are you getting statistics for that as well? So, you know, you've got to measure it fairly. So, yeah, all I can say is I was totally dissatisfied, be happy not to give them any money. Bungeo, that is.
Thank you, Councillor Lindemann. Councillor Bailey? Oh, sorry, Councillor Davey?
Councillor Glover also raised the importance of collaboration, was something she took away from the conference as well. So we do have this network with Bungeo, and the fact that we haven't got the most out of it, or we could get more out of it, I think maybe we should be looking at increasing the value we get on our investment opportunistically as well, rather than just cutting it.
Can I make a
Thank you, Councillor Davey. CEO O'Connor, can you just comment on the changes that are maybe underway with the Bungeo, this contribution we're making? I understand there's a workshop on the 28th of October.
Yes, so thanks very much. That was the comment I was going to talk to. So my understanding, and I don't have the depth of knowledge or experience on the matter, councillors, but there is a workshop scheduled for the 28th of October, and I think that's an opportunity for a reset for the organisation and for, I guess, a number of the positives and opportunities for improvement to be discussed as part of that workshop, and get some understanding around the working model moving forward. So that is scheduled. There has been representatives from the Shire invited, or I was planning to attend. So yeah, I guess it's as an organisation, it's sort of using the opportunity just to do a check and balance and reset.
Thank you, CEO O'Connor. And also, I'll make comment to CEO that at the last Bungeo meeting, where the doubt of the value to us came about was in regard to signage on the new highway, and how it was all directed towards the south. And there was question in the meeting around whether that was value to us. But it'd be interesting to see the output from that workshop. Councillor Lindemann?
Yeah, well, I guess I'd just like to reiterate again that the decision was made to pull it out of the budget because we didn't see any value in it. So I guess now we're forced into it, so we have to go with it. So I understand that people will want to get the best value they can out of that. And I guess the next topic really is that we can take the money from where it's been suggested, which is the surplus for that. So really, I think the decisions are made.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak before we... Councillor Glover, and then I'll go Councillor Gubler.
Part of the decision that we had in the workshop to sort of relinquish our membership was, I'm not sure if dissatisfaction was the kind of words that were there, but we just didn't feel we were getting value out of being in that membership. So not having...
Can I just correct that there, just very quickly? It's not for the complete Alliance of Councils. It was a contribution to this project, to the tourism component. Yep.
So other people, we're not debating, but other people have spoken about it and about the wording in the report. And so that's what I was bringing up. Is that okay to continue saying what I was saying, Madam President? I can continue? Sorry, I just thought that what I was saying wasn't in line with what we were talking about. So
Just a
I'm
point of clarification.
confused.
Are you happy to keep talking? We can pass it out. Yep.
No, I got interrupted with what I was saying, that's all. I was just sort of saying that the words...
Councillor Glover, you can continue.
Thank you. The words were that we felt we weren't getting value out of that particular one. I look forward to hearing what happens at the workshop to see how it may align with our values going forward. So that was my first point about it. My second point was we're talking about a budget variation in regard to savings as well, or surpluses on the budget. Do we know, or are we curious about where the surpluses have arisen from? Because obviously there are other amendments that have happened that have created a surplus.
Without getting too broad on the topic, Councillor CEO.
Yeah, so
Oh, sorry,
thanks, very,
CEO
thanks very
O'Connor.
much, President. Thanks for the question, Councillor. I don't have the detail of where that anticipated surplus over and above the budgeted amount is coming from, or what are those drivers. We'll need to take a deeper dive and provide that information on notice. I'm not sure whether Mr Badalina's got any further
Councillors,
information.
let's just narrow it down to the recommendation that's being put up. Would anyone else like to speak to that? Oh, sorry. Acting Director of
just
Finance
on
and
that
Corporate.
surplus, obviously your budget's a forecast, so you're forecasting a surplus. You're now getting your statements finalised, which is determined you got more than you forecast, and invariably you'll forecast a worst case position, or most people do, than what you get, not the other way around. So that's the reason.
But I guess getting that, sorry, just to add to that, Shire President, getting down to the granular level, the sources of where the overs and the unders are, I'm not across that detail at this stage, which I think.
Thank you. Councillor Lindemann.
I know I'm banging on about this, but I don't want to mince words. If you're not getting value, it means no usefulness or importance. It's no use.
What's no use, Councillor Lindemann?
Bum-Geo Alliance for us to be part of. There's no use for us. That's when we were talking about wording. You know, I say disappointment, or the words disappointment, but there's been no value. No value means, and I'll read it from here, it has no usefulness or importance. I'm just clarifying.
Are you reading that from this recommendation?
No, I'm not. I'm just reading it off the internet.
Yeah, can we get back to the recommendation? We're talking about where we were going to take that $20,000 and like what is the offset account to make up for the $20,000 error in our budget process. Councillor Davey.
Can we look at it at the mid-year review rather than commit to where it's coming from now?
It's CEO O'Connor.
Yeah, so look, I think the suggested way forward is we're forecasting a surplus in the 23-24 year over and above what was foreshadowed or has been discussed, and as part of the budget review, that's when it'll be all tidied up as part of the budget review process.
Councillor Davey.
The reason I asked the question is the final 23-24 information is yet to go through the Audit and Risk Committee, is yet to come to Council. There's all these things that still need to happen. So rather than get down to the detail now, can we just park it and say we'll look at it at the mid-year review, which I think was an option put forward in the officer's report?
CEO O'Connor, are we able to pay it without having a budget amendment? Are we spending unbudgeted funds?
You need to have the
amendment. We need to have the amendment. Yeah. CEO O'Connor.
We might just pop up the alternate if councillors want to not fund it from the community
surplus
grants, but you wish to words to the effect of obviously you approve the unbudgeted expenditure that needs to be approved, and that funds for the 24-25 membership be sourced from a carried forward budget for the 23-24 budget surplus.
Thank you, CEO O'Connor. Councillor Goobler.
So could this item be deferred, and is that an option that we could?
We can't defer it, Councillor Goobler, because we need to pay it. Councillor Lindemann.
Oh, so I'm happy to move this amendment.
Councillor
Once
Davey.
return to standing order.
I just wanted to clarify, I was not saying that we should not approve the unbudgeted expenditure, just that until we get to the mid-year review process, we don't need to lock in where it comes from, yeah. But that's what I want a clarification on.
If we need to have an account for it to go to before we can spend it. Otherwise, we're spending unbudgeted funds. I'm going to suggest we go back to standing orders. Would someone like to move? We go back to... Yes, Councillor Mitchell.
Please confirm that I did read that we've formally told the group that we're not joining next year. I did read it somewhere, didn't I?
It's not the group, it's not the Alliance of Councils. This is the Tourism Partnership.
The Bungeo. But we have confirmed, given them their 12 months notice,
I believe we have.
Yeah,
but-
I know I've read
but
it somewhere, yeah.
I believe we
Yes.
have, CEO O'Connor.
Yes, look, that was what
but-
triggered, I guess, this report being brought
Thank
back to
you.
council, was
Thank
there
you.
was saying it was our intention, and then, as has been discussed, there is the workshop, so
Yeah, and there is an opportunity
there's
to
an
review that
opportunity
if
to
we
review
want.
that post the workshop.
Okay.
So, we've-
Councillor Bailey?
thank you, through the chair. So the bill we're paying now is for 24-25.
That's
And
correct.
we've got to give them 12 months' notice to leave
That's
the group.
correct.
Okay, so if we pay this bill, we give them notice at the same time, do we?
Notice has already been given, CEO
Yeah,
O'Connor?
my understanding is, through the chair, is that, yeah, as part of the previous temporary CEO, that the notification was provided, and on the back of that notification, we're told we need to stay in and be members. But I can clarify that obviously that the date of that initial notification, that stands as our exit point.
Well,
So
and
therefore-
that's the important thing, otherwise they'll be hitting us for another 20 grand
Yep.
because they
No,
can't
we
next
won't
year.
be.
Now, would councillors like to go back to standing orders? Would someone like to move that motion? Councillor Mitchell and Councillor Lindemann? All in favour? That's carried. Okay. Item 9.3.1, the proposed budget variation for the Bunbury Geograph Tourist Partnership membership subscription. Would someone like to move the recommendation as it is on the screen? Councillor Patrick? Councillor Lindemann? No, Councillor, sorry. Councillor Patrick, would you like to speak to the motion?
Oh, look, other than to say, you know, we've got an obligation to pay a bill that we've committed to. We've got an MOU. As much as some of us might not like it, it is what it is, and we're just basically approving that we're paying a bill, and it's sort of almost just a minor detail to say where it's coming from, unfortunately.
Thank you, Councillor Patrick. Councillor Lindemann?
Quite strangely, our overlooking of this and paying it and getting no value has actually benefited our community in going into another source. Is that correct?
That's correct. Would anyone like to speak against the motion? Councillor Davey?
Yeah, just along similar lines that I was saying, given that we haven't got the 23-24 information finalised and in front of us to confirm there is a budget surplus, and the officer's recommendation was that we had the option to approve the $20,000 membership subscription as unbudgeted expenditure, not identify equivalent budget savings at this time, and await the mid-year budget review to find such savings. So without the confirmation of what the actual budget surplus was and seeing those final reports and discussing that, I think number 2 is a little bit premature. But yeah, happy to go with the group.
Thank you, Councillor Davey. Would anyone else like to speak to the motion? Councillor Bailey?
Through the chair, so at this stage, is the money coming from community groups or is it coming from surplus? It's coming from surplus.
This motion states that the money is coming out of the surplus funds
Okay,
from last year.
Thank you.
Would anyone else like to speak to the motion? I would just like to say that I'm really pleased that the grants and donations are staying in place. Listening to some reports at the Yabberup Community Hall last week at the AGM of the Preston Valley River, am I saying the right words, Alexis? Preston River Valley Group, yeah, were showing the output from their grant last year, and it really triggered some desire in me to have that still going forward this year. So I'm pleased to see that, if it gets passed. Okay, would anyone else like to speak to the motion? We'll put that to vote. Oh no, we'll pass it back to right of reply with grant to Councillor Patrick.
No, look, other than to say, look, I do agree to some degree with what Councillor Davies saying. I just feel at the moment it is semantics, whether it's coming, ultimately we've got to pay the bill, and I'd rather even that we say it's coming from a surplus, which we now have an obligation to ensure we have that surplus. And as you said, President McCarthy, it's good to see that, it's not going to impact the community grants.
Thank you, Councillor Patrick. We'll put the item to vote. Those in favour? That's carried. Moving on to item 10, there are no elected member motions. And item 11, there is no urgent business introduced by the decision of the meeting. It brings us to item 12, the meeting being closed to the public. Would councillors like to move that we close the meeting to the public? Councillor Mitchell and Councillor Lindemann have moved. All in favour? Approved. whole recommendation. And, okay. Returning to the meeting, Council has moved the motion that Council requests the Chief Executive Officer to award the contract for RFQ 334 bituminous products for 2024-25 to Fulton Hogan Industries Proprietary Limited in accordance with their submitted offer for the specified projects only. And two, requests that the Chief Executive Officer to advise Fulton Hogan Industries Proprietary Limited that Council has determined not to accept their schedule of rates for non-specified works submitted with their offer. That takes us on to item 13, closure of the meeting. And I'd like to declare that, we'll first advise that the next agenda briefing session will be held on the 20th of November 2024 at 5 p.m. in the Shire of Donnybrook Balingup Council Chamber. And I declare the meeting closed at 7:05 p.m.